Hola clase. Este es un video para ustedes para repasar un poquito del Preterito porque vamos a empezar en algo nuevo en este capítulo en la próxima tarea. Entonces yo quiero practicar y repasar con ustedes el Preterito y cómo vamos a hacer ese forma. Entonces, en la pizarra detrás de mí hay apuntes para ustedes, pero tienes estos en sus cuadernos, entonces puedes leerlos si necesitas. Y también está en su capítulo en voces. Okay, so I said, hello everybody. This is a message for you guys reviewing the preterite. So I wanted to make a quick video with you guys to review the preterite tense, just so that we remember what it is before I get into any of the new stuff. So what you're going to see on the board behind me is I do have this section that is dedicated to a review of your information from the previous chapter, actually. And then the stuff where you can kind of start to see it over above my head, it says new stuff. We're going to get into that as soon as we can. If I can, I'll fit it into one video. If I can't, I'll make two. So here we go. Let's get started. All right. We have el preterito. So this is the simple past tense in Spanish. When we were talking about this, we talked about it as being a one-time action, and it was done. It has a clear start and stop time. Just trying to get it so that you guys can see it better. So up here, I just wrote for you guys to remind you what the endings are for AR verbs and ER/IR verbs. So just so that you have them there, AR looks like these ones, and IR and ER are actually the same in the regular preterite endings. So these are your endings there. And just to remember, or to remind you, the verb that we used with these last chapter was ear. So I conjugated ear again for you guys. You already have this in your notes. This isn't anything new. This is from chapter 14, but I just wanted to remind you. All right, this is how we conjugate it. This is what they mean, and then just to remind you the pronouns and all of that stuff that go along with it. So nothing new. All right, then this second section, let me say that clearer. This is useful phrases that we had from chapter 14. So once again, this is older stuff. Okay, so frases útiles para formar el pasado. So these are phrases that clue you into the fact that when you are making sentences or doing any writing or speaking, that these words are a part of, that you need to be using the past tense in your verbs instead of the present tense. And because we only know one form of the past tense so far, it's a pretty good indicator that you guys will be using the preterite. Okay, so just to remind you what those look like, we have ayer, anoche, la semana pasado, el mes pasado, el año pasado, hace blank días, semanas, años, antes. Okay, so you guys have these written down in your notes. We talked about these in class when we went through chapter 14. But I just wanted to put them back up here to remind you. These are going to come back into play in this chapter. Okay? So, with those thoughts in mind, whenever you see these types of words, these are your clue words that you need to be using the preterite tense. Alright? When you see these in your sentences, make sure that you're conjugating your verbs into the preterite tense, like up above. Okay, so that gets us through the review of the older stuff. Let's get into some of the newer stuff. Okay, so over here, you can see behind me, when I'm not blocking it, so I'm trying to put the computer in a better spot. You can see that I have written up for you a list of the new verbs that we're going to be working with as we're working on the preterite tense. Okay, so the first one that we're going to start to work with is a star. In English, we know that this means to be. All right. When we put it into the past tense, though, this is going to become was. Okay? So this is what it looks like. We drop the AR at the end, and we add UVE, UVIST, UVO, UVIMOS, UVIERON. okay? These become our 5 forms of the conjugated verb estar in the preterite. So those sound like estuve, estuviste, estuvo, estuvimos, y estuvieron. Okay, so I was, you were, he, she, it was, we were, and they were. And just to remind you, once again, I put your pronouns over here on this side. Okay, the next verb that they're giving you in this section is tener. We already know tener. Tener means to have. Okay, we use it for so much more than just this, but this is our basic understanding of tener. All right, and then this one conjugates very, very similarly to how we looked at estar just a second ago. All right, so these are what we would call the irregulars, but you're going to notice that they do conjugate fairly regularly, right, in the preterite tense. So the yo form becomes tuve, the tu form becomes tuviste, the el, ella, usted form becomes tuvo, y the nosotros form becomes tuvimos, y ellos, ellas, ustedes becomes tuvieron. All right, so then you see that the meaning all changes down the side too. Tuve becomes I had, tuviste you had, tuvo he she it had, etc., etc. All right, so just to remember how to use these. All right, and then the last one that they gave you was ponerse. And one really important note to mention about ponerse before we get into the actual conjugation and explanation with it is anytime you have a verb that has se at the end of it, that verb is what we call reflexive, meaning that the action that is taking place is happening to the person speaking, or the person speaking is doing that thing to somebody else, okay? So the action is being transferred, is what we would call it. All right, so ponerse then, when we think of poner in English, we tend to think of it as put or place, but it also has a lot of different meanings, all right? So in this case, ponerse, when it has the se at the end, means to become or to get, all right? So when we conjugated it, because we have the se at the end right here, we had to put these things in front, all right? These are what we call our reflexive pronouns. You guys have actually been using these as you've been going through some activities, so I just wanted to remind you what those things were, okay? And they match up with each of the subjects. So me is I, te is you, se is he, she, it, se is also they, so be careful, okay? And then nos is obviously we. All right, so then we conjugate poner. It takes a u where the o is, all right? That's fairly irregular, all right? And then we get the U-S-E, U-S-I-S-T-E, U-S-O, U-S-I-M-O-S, U-S-I-E-R-O-N, okay? So it becomes me puse, te pusiste, se puso, nos pusimos, y se pusieron, all right? And yes, because we're high schoolers and we can have a silly giggle moment if we need to at this verb, go ahead and get it out. But I'm going to remind you guys that in Spanish, you do not have silent vowels, okay? So if you see that there are several vowels together, right, pusieron, they all get said, okay? You don't leave them silent, okay? I know this one is a funny sounding verb, but we need to be grown up about it as we're using it. So I just wanted to make a video to show you guys what these look like when they're conjugated. I think I will make you a second video to actually give you some examples using these as we go through them. But these are the conjugations. Please make sure that you take notes of them. If you haven't done so already, I would encourage you to go back and look at the beginning of chapter 15, where it has the notes page about el preterito con estar, tener, and ponerse, because those are the verbs that we're going to be using in particular as we go through these activities. Now, this doesn't mean that you're not going to see other verbs, okay, because you will. But when we're using these verbs in particular, we're going to most likely be conjugating them almost every single time into the preterite tense, and any other verb that we're using, we might have to decide whether or not it needs to go preterite or it needs to be present tense, okay? So be careful as you're going through. Also, I'm going to remind you and caution you that you don't put two conjugated verbs together. So if you're conjugating one of these verbs into the preterite tense, then your other verb is going to most likely be infinitive, especially if they come right next to each other. Okay? So just a reminder, I know this is slightly confusing. This is definitely not how I wanted to teach you guys a different verb tense, because verb tenses are confusing as it is. So we're just going to do the best that we can, get through what we can with this. I think we're going to start skipping around a little bit in material, especially because seniors, you only have, I think May 9th is the last day that we're assigning you guys new assignments, and everything is supposed to be turned in that following week so that we can get things graded for you guys for graduation. So be thinking of that as you're going through all of this stuff, especially if you're missing any work. Please make sure that you're keeping in contact with me if you guys need help. I've been trying really hard to answer emails. I've gotten a lot of emails, so thank you for those who have been asking questions. I still really want to try to help you guys as you go through. I don't want you to struggle. I don't want this to be confusing. So please let me know if there's any way that I can help. And other than that, I'm going to put this video up for you guys, and then I'm going to put your assignments live on Google Classroom and in the textbook. So, buena suerte y hasta luego. Ciao.